Alright, I am back from the Apple event, definitely still a bit jet lagged I must say, but now I've had time to reflect a little bit more on the 14 launch. And while I'm still extremely excited about the new phones, especially the new camera hardware and the software with that photonic engine, there are a few areas that I came away a little bit disappointed by. But to caveat, this is not my review, that'll be coming in a few days, just a few points to be mindful of. Okay, number one, let's talk about Dynamic Island, which I can't wait to visit next year. But in the meantime, this was definitely one of the most surprising new features. I don't think anyone predicted this. The notch has become this pill-shaped cutout, which I must admit does instantly make the Pros more modern and futuristic looking, although I do appreciate the Huawei P40 Pro from a couple of years ago had a similar looking hole punch. But Apple have taken it a step further, and it's become a new kind of notification bar. And as it stays on top, you can have your timers, step counters, navigation, your music, always there at a glance. I genuinely think it's a really cool feature, and it also, of course, kind of separates it visually from the iPhone 13 Pros, the 12 Pros, the 11 Pros. It's subtle, but it is still one of the most significant redesigns we've seen since the iPhone 10. However, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. Yes, the surface area of the new cutout is smaller than the old notch, but because it sits lower from the top of the screen, it actually somehow feels more intrusive, especially on the smaller 6.1-inch Pro. We do get a bit of the screen back above the pill, but that's just kind of wasted space, and it can end up even more distracting for videos and games full screens than that traditional notch. Also, at launch, there are only a handful of apps that actually make use of the Dynamic Island. I have no doubt more will be added over time, and most music apps like Spotify should work straight away, I'm told, but other developers will need to update their apps to support it, so it might take a little while to become properly useful. And finally, I wonder if touching and prodding the island will end up leaving fingerprints and smudges all over your selfie camera. And also, while the size of the island looks better suited to the Pro Max, it could be tricky to reach up and use one-handed. Okay, number two, and we still have the Lightning port, now in its 10th year? And also no change to charging time. It still takes 30 minutes to get 50% even on the new iPhones. Although the good news is, according to Apple's numbers, all iPhone 14s are getting an extra hour of battery. My only concern is if the iPhone 15s next year do transition to USB-C, which I expect they will given the EU law restrictions coming into force, unless they go fully portless, but that's a whole other story. But that would then mean these new 14s become a bit outdated straight away. And in fact, right now, only the AirPods, the basic iPad, and the iPhone still use Lightning. Okay, number three, and I have to hold my hands up because I actually made a mistake in my first impressions video. I said that the prices hadn't changed, and they haven't if you're in the US. But unfortunately here in the UK we're looking at a between £70 and £150 price hike, and also in the EU it's even more. So while I'm very jealous of my US friends, globally the prices have gone up. The good news though is the still very capable iPhone 13 is now cheaper, and also the new 14 Plus model, which is 100 more than the standard 14, is a much more affordable way of getting a big screen and much longer battery without shelling out for the Pro Max. To be fair, a price increase isn't that surprising given inflation and everything that's going on in the world. Basically, I'm just jealous of my US friends. Although, for number four, one change my US friends may not be so keen on is the removal of the SIM card tray. All iPhone 14s in the US are now eSIM only, which is quite a significant move. Now, for most people, this isn't really a problem. It's easy to transfer from a physical SIM to an eSIM, and there are advantages like quicker switching between networks. However, if you travel a lot, then you'll know the convenience of being able to go up to a booth at the airport and pop in a prepaid SIM card, which you can still do with eSIMs, but it's not as common around the world. Number five, and I am actually really excited about the new 14 Plus. I think it's going to be really popular, but I was a little bit confused by Apple's statements saying it was the longest lasting iPhone you could buy, which kind of suggests that it might even beat the Pro Max.
iPhone 14 Plus lasts even longer throughout your day, with the best battery life ever in an iPhone.
But in fact, looking at Apple's own numbers, like video playback, the Pro Max still has a good 3-hour advantage over the 14 Plus. Certainly they're both fantastic, and in reality we're probably talking about the number one and then number two longest lasting phones that you can actually buy, but I just felt Apple's marketing was a little bit unclear. And speaking of which, at number 6, considering this Apple event was called Far Out, there were obviously lots of rumors about astrophotography, longer zoom lenses, and of course that satellite link. But what actually happened was we got that nifty new satellite SOS feature, which is technically very impressive, but there are a couple of big caveats. It's only coming to the US and Canada for the time being, and also it'll only be free for 2 years. After that, it'll be a paid service, although we don't know how much. Also, I was a bit disappointed we didn't see a new telephoto lens with a longer optical zoom, like 5 or 10 times. Instead, we have this new 2 times zoom option. Having said that, even without a longer optical zoom, I am confident the much wider aperture of the telephoto lens, together with that new photonic engine, will mean that photos up to the maximum 15 times digital zoom should be noticeably higher quality, although I can't wait to test this properly. Number 7, and while I had my fingers crossed on one hand for that longer optical zoom, on the other hand I was crossing my fingers for ProMotion 120Hz across the full lineup, but no such luck. Unfortunately, the regular 14 and the 14 Plus are still limited to 60Hz, which does feel slow in comparison, and given the prices for a brand new 2022 phone, it's a little disappointing. I mean, granted the average user may not care all that much, but considering you'll often get 120Hz on Android phones that cost half the price, it's a bit frustrating. Although the Pro models have had a slight upgrade, the refresh rate can now adjust between 1 and 120Hz, which will improve efficiency, and also means the new always-on display can have a really low battery impact. How many fingers is that? Number 8. And as you guys know, the 14s are sticking with last year's A15 chip, albeit the beefier 5-core GPU version, which previously was only on the Pros. The thing is though, the A15 is already incredibly fast, and actually in Apple's event, the graphs they were using to compare used the A13 versus the A16 to show the improvement. So right now we don't really know just how much faster the A16 is going to be over the A15, but I'm guessing it's not going to be an awful lot. So on paper, sticking with the A15 may be a bit disappointing, but in reality, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Number 9, and I'm really happy to see that Cinematic Mode Video now supports 4K 24 and 4K 30. Plus we have the new Action Mode for ultra steady video, although that does limit the resolution to 2.8K. I'm really excited to test these out, but one feature that still seems to be missing is the ability to pause and resume video recording, which you can do on many Android phones. And also, I'd love to have seen the ability to switch between the front and rear cameras while recording. I mean, iPhones offer the smoothest transitions between lenses on any phone, but I just wish that could include switching to the front, especially with the new upgraded TrueDepth selfie camera. And finally, number 10, and really this is just a piece of consumer advice. I would avoid buying anything until you see reviews. Maybe you can place an order, watch the reviews, and then make your mind up whether you keep it or not. But the reason I say this, particularly for the new iPhones, is for me at least, I reckon it's the camera upgrades that are the most significant improvement. And that's also one of the things that you can't really test at a hands-on event. You can't take away any of the photo samples. So until I get the 14s here and I could do some camera comparisons and review it properly, it's hard to quantify just how much of an upgrade it's going to be until we see what that camera can do. So I guess the point is, make sure you hit that subscribe button and watch as many reviews as possible before you spend your hard-earned cash. But to finish, I do want to stress that highlighting these problems doesn't mean you shouldn't buy one or get excited about the new iPhones. It's just that with any product, there's always room for improvement. And also right now, as money is tight for so many people, it is also worth considering the value of these new phones and whether it's a better option to hold off for another year or perhaps go for a cheaper model like the iPhone 12 or 13. But what do you think? Are you tempted to buy one, or have you already placed your order? Let me know in the comments below, and if you have bought one, which model are you going for? Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.